Good morning. Welcome to Friday's edition of Everything Yesterday This Morning. I am your host, literally, Heather, and today is Casual Friday. Okay, so the gamer in me couldn't not discuss this. A new lawsuit filed in Delaware alleges that the embattled Activision CEO, Activision is the company that makes like Call of Duty, Bobby Kotick ignored misconduct at the company and that the publisher's $70 billion acquisition deal with Microsoft would allow Kotick to escape liability and accountability entirely. The complaint was jointly filed on April 26 by groups who own stock in Activision. These groups include New York City's Employees Retirement System, pension funds for the city fire department and police, as well as the Board of Education and Teachers Retirement Systems. It's odd, but these are all groups who own stock in Activision. The allegations are that actions from the company's executives, including Kotick, hurt the company's value. The complaint claims that Activision failed to submit all requested records following a Section 220 demand. This is a legal mechanism within Delaware's Court of Chancery that allows invested parties to request access to books and documents. Kotick was specifically aware of numerous credible allegations of misconduct at the company, but did nothing to address them or prevent further offenses. These groups claim that while Kotick faces a strong likelihood of liability for breaches of fiduciary duty, together with other members of the board, the company's deal with Microsoft, which was negotiated by Kotick, would allow him to escape liability and accountability entirely. Finally, the complaint notes that fortunately for Kotick, his negotiations with Microsoft began only 3 days after the Wall Street Journal's revelatory disclosure reporting on his role in shielding executives from consequences. Activision Blizzard shareholders approved the Microsoft buyout in a near unanimous 98% vote just last week. However, the fate of the proposed merger remains uncertain in the wake of falling Activision stock and a direct review from the FTC. The financial factor underlining the complaint is tied to the share value accepted in the Microsoft deal. The complaint claims that at $95 per share, the deal appears to seriously undervalue Activision, as this price represents a mere 1% premium over what it was trading at before the company was hit with the initial California lawsuit in July of 2021. These plaintiffs say they began investigating Activision in October of 2021 and filed an initial Section 220 demand the same month. The 107 documents eventually produced in response to this demand suggested that the board faced a strong likelihood of liability for breaches of fiduciary duty. So the reason that I bring this up, much of this probably would have fallen on the board of Twitter had they not decided to come to the table and negotiate with Elon Musk. So it's interesting, this notion that they undervalued the stock for the sale, when if they had charged more, people could have gotten more money. So I don't know. Wanted to share that with you guys. Jen Psaki is headed to MSNBC and is being replaced by Karen or Karine, I'm not sure how to say her name, Jean-Pierre, as the first Black and out LGBTQ person in the role. It's interesting they keep saying the out part, and I guess they explicitly put that portion in there because there must have been a former press secretary who was still closeted. I'm not sure, but she will formally begin her role on May 13th because we need maximum virtue signaling before the election. Jean-Pierre has served on the White House's senior communications team since Biden took office, and before that was an advisor to his campaign and chief of staff to now Vice President Kamala Harris. Could you imagine having any of those jobs? How much work you would have to put in as a communications director to make either of them look good? Jean-Pierre's family includes her partner, CNN national correspondent Suzanne Malveaux, and their daughter. Yes, you heard that correctly. Her partner is a CNN national correspondent. The incestuous nature of U.S. media mixed in with U.S. politics is gross and screams of a fallen fourth estate. Jean-Pierre said, quote, "I'm still processing it because, as Jen said, at the top, this is a historic moment and it's not lost on me. I understand how important it is for so many people out there, so many different communities that I stand on their shoulders. It is an honor and a privilege to be behind this podium. I wish her all the best. However, you represent the White House, not the identities by which you identify with. So I think it's really important to remember what your job and your role is." Facebook is pausing on hiring and scaling back plans to acquire new talent across the company. CFO David Wayner said the company, which has rebranded to Meta, is doing so as part of its, quote, reprioritization, as it tackles challenges that caused it to miss revenue targets, according to an internal memo shared on Wednesday. In a separate memo, Facebook's global head of recruiting, Miranda Kalinowski, said the company's engineering team would be the first to be impacted by these hiring decisions, while management continues to adjust hiring targets elsewhere. It's rare for Facebook to freeze hiring. The last time they did so was at the start of the pandemic, as the company scrambled to put in place processes to onboard new hires. Speaking in the world of tech, Elon Musk is expected to become Twitter's temporary CEO after closing his $44 billion takeover of the social media firm. Tesla shares dropped over 8% on Thursday as investors fretted that Musk's involvement with Twitter could distract him from running the electric car company. Twitter shares, on the other hand, extended gains and were up about 4% at $50.89, which is closer to the deal price of $54.20, as investors bet that the new funding made the completion of the deal more likely. Parag Agrawal, who was just named CEO in November, is expected to remain in his role until the sale of the company is complete. Yesterday, Musk listed a group of high-profile investors who are ready to provide funding for his Twitter bid. Larry Ellison of Sequoia Capital and Saudi Arabian investor Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, who I told you last month said the deal price wasn't good enough, has changed his tune and said that Musk would be an excellent leader for Twitter and agreed to roll his $1.89 billion stake into the deal. Other investors include Binance, New York-based real estate tycoon Steve Witkoff's firm, and DFJ's Growth 4 Partners, who also have investments in The Boring Company, SpaceX, SolarCity, and Tesla. So you can definitely tell that DFJ Growth is a huge fan of Musk and sees him as a viable asset. Binance CEO Changpeng Zhao had an interesting comment. He said, quote, "We hope to be able to play a role in bringing social media and Web3 together and broadening the use and adoption of crypto and blockchain technology." After Musk mentioned end-to-end encryption on DMs, this is a welcome statement coming from Zhao. U.S. regulators yesterday strictly limited who can receive Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccine due to the ongoing risk of rare but serious blood clots. The FDA said the shot should only be given to adults who cannot receive a different vaccine or specifically request Johnson & Johnson's vaccine. U.S. authorities for months have recommended that Americans starting their COVID-19 vaccinations use the Pfizer or Moderna shots instead. FDA officials said in a statement that they decided to restrict Johnson & Johnson vaccines after taking another look at the data on the risk of life-threatening blood clots within 2 weeks of vaccination. Federal scientists identified 60 cases, including 9 that were fatal as of mid-March. That amounts to 1 blood clot case per 3.23 million Johnson & Johnson shots administered, which is actually still fairly minimal, but the vaccine will carry a starker warning about potential long-term and debilitating health consequences as a side effect. A Johnson & Johnson spokesperson in a statement said, quote, "Data continues to support a favorable benefit to risk profile for the Johnson & Johnson COVID vaccine in adults when compared with no vaccine." Despite the restriction, FDA's vaccine chief, Dr. Peter Marks, said Johnson & Johnson's vaccine still has a role in the current pandemic response in the United States and across the global community. What role? Are we not in a even if it saves one life world anymore? Isn't that what the masks were all about? If we save just one life. Attorney General Merrick Garland has announced a new office at the Justice Department that will focus exclusively on environmental justice. The office, which will prioritize low-income communities that have been hit hard by pollution and contamination, was launched in partnership with the EPA. Although violations of environmental law can happen anywhere, communities of color, indigenous communities, and low-income communities often bear the brunt of the harm caused by environmental crime, pollution, and climate change. The Biden administration has asked Congress for $1.4 million for the office to be established. The Office of Environmental Justice will be headed by Cynthia Ferguson. Haven't done research on her yet, but you bet I will. In November, the Justice Department opened a first-of-its-kind environmental justice investigation into the wastewater disposal and infectious disease programs of the Alabama Public Health Department and the Lowndes County Health Department to determine whether they are operating the programs in a manner that discriminates against Black residents. The majority Black county lacks a centralized sewer system, and at least 40% of homes have inadequate or no sewage systems at all. In conjunction with this announcement, the Senate voted 49-47 that current law would not allow the president to declare a national emergency on the basis of climate change. Senators Joe Manchin and Mark Kelly joined Republicans in support. I'm not going to lie, I am liking the clawing back of executive power and federal power, between the Supreme Court putting abortion law back in the hands of the state and wrenching unchecked executive authority away from the president, which it has not passed the House yet, so keep that in mind, is a good day in my book. The U.S. military is tracking a Russian surface vessel of unspecified type that's been operating near Hawaii in recent days. The U.S. Indo-Pacific Command told Hawaii's KAAN 2 news channel on Sunday that, quote, "We are monitoring a Russian surface vessel operating in the international waters in the vicinity of Hawaii." They're not just watching the ship. They're watching everything that might be connected to and getting some real detail on what it's doing, why it might be there, who they're reporting to. All of these things go into a fusion process, an analytical process, if you will, that tells us what is a threat and what is not a threat. And that's coming from retired Colonel Hal Kempfer. Russian naval activity near Hawaii is not uncommon. In January, a Russian surveillance ship sailed around Hawaii for several days. Kempfer said that Russian warships would loiter around Hawaii through the Cold War. The tactics, techniques, and procedures that we saw the Soviets doing back in the Cold War seem to be resurfacing again under the Russian banner. This looks like one of those issues that I would point to Russian intelligence ships potentially off the shore of Hawaii. In June of last year, a larger fleet of Russian surface combatants and aircraft practiced carrying out strikes on an enemy aircraft carrier. Unconfirmed satellite imagery purported to show 3 U.S. Navy destroyers and a U.S. Coast Guard cutter escorting some of the Russian ships involved in the drills after they sailed within 35 miles of Hawaii. Hearing that description from RT the other day about detonating Poseidon on the edge of Britain, I don't see how detonating it on the edge of Hawaii wouldn't be in their purview of an option. I feel like we are worried about an election and virtue signaling while funding a proxy war with a country dead set on expanding or our destruction, whichever comes first. That is your Friday edition of Everything Yesterday This Morning. I hope you guys have a great Friday. Have a fantastic weekend. I will see you this evening live on Twitter Spaces. You guys take care. Have a great day.